A graph of y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c is shown to the right. The graph is this parabola. Part 1. Is the value of a positive or negative? Well, notice that a is the leading coefficient in the equation. We want to determine if a is positive or negative. So what we have to recall is that a determines whether the parabola opens up or down. If a is positive, the parabola opens up. If a is negative, the parabola opens down. So looking at our parabola, we see that it opens in an upwards direction. And therefore our conclusion is that the sign of A is positive. The parabola opens up and therefore A is positive. For part 2, what are the solutions, if any, to the equation ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0? For this part, we want to compare the equation with the equation of the function. What we notice is that the only difference is that the y has been replaced with a 0. So we recall that when we set y equal to 0, we use that procedure to find the x-intercepts of a graph. So what we need to do is to determine the x-intercepts of the graph. So we look along the x-axis and we see that the parabola intersects the axis at just one location. It intersects when the x value is negative 2. So that tells us that the solution to this equation is x is equal to negative 2. There's just one solution because there is one x-intercept. Part 3. Is the discriminant positive, negative, or 0? What we need to recall is that the discriminant is the b squared minus 4ac that's underneath of the radical symbol in the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula helps you to solve the equation ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. The solutions are given by this equation. The discriminant is the radicand, the part underneath of the radical. Now what we've already seen in part 2 is that this equation has one solution. So what we need to do is to decide, what do we know about the discriminant if there is just one real solution? Is the discriminant positive? Is it negative? Or is it 0? So let's think about, first of all, if b squared minus 4ac, if the discriminant is positive, then what would happen? Well, the square root of a positive number is positive, and if we subtract a positive number or add a positive number to a number, we get two different answers. Minus b plus a positive number, minus b minus a positive number. The result would be two different real solutions. So if b squared minus 4ac is positive, then there would be two real solutions to the graph, and those two real solutions would correspond with two x-intercepts. So the parabola would have two x-intercepts. If the discriminant was negative, then we would have the square root of a negative number, and the square root of a negative number is not real. And therefore the solutions, or the solution to this equation, would be that there is no real solution. And since there's no real solution, there would not be any x-intercepts on the graph. So if b squared minus 4ac is negative, then there are 0 x-intercepts. Finally, if b squared minus 4ac is 0, then we would have 0 underneath the square root symbol, and the square root of 0 is 0. And if we take minus b and add 0, or minus b and subtract 0, we get the same result. We would get the same one answer, and that one answer would be minus b over 2a. In other words, the x-intercept would be right at the vertex, which is the case in this particular problem. We would have one x-intercept. So we want to note here that there's just one x-intercept. And because there's one x-intercept, that tells us that the discriminant is 0.